Hey, welcome my friends, here I am, it's Chat with Matt. It is the 12th of May 2021 and I'm in Whitianga, spelt with a WH, for those of you who don't understand Māori spelling. It's, if you're trying to look it up where Whitianga might be, it's the base of the Coromandel on the east coast of New Zealand, up sort of, yeah, closer to Auckland than where I currently live, but anyway. Here I am. I was just searching through my Facebook feed looking for where I put the announcement to this that I put on last night and I can't find it, so maybe I cooked that up and didn't put the announcement on for this live stream, which is a bit of a shame, but there you go, there are no accidents. For whatever reason I'm supposed to be here unannounced, which also means that I don't have any questions pre-asked. So I'm at a bit of a loose end till someone gets on here and starts talking to me, asking some questions. I left home yesterday. We've driven up here to Whitianga. We've got a retreat starting tomorrow, so we've got all day today. Basically, the retreat's not here in Whitianga; it's up further north, right at the top of the Coromandel, a place called Port Charles, which is in a Kiwi conservation area. Kiwi the bird, not Kiwi the people. So that's starting tomorrow afternoon, but today we're just sort of hanging out here, sort of cut the drive down. I drove pretty much 8 hours yesterday to get here, and then we've got another 2 or 3, well yeah, it's probably only 2, maybe 2.5 hours to go from here up to where the retreat is, and it starts tomorrow afternoon. We're right on the ocean and it's beautiful. And the sun's shining, and apparently the weather is completely shit house at home, so we've avoided that, which Marie is very, very happy about, to avoid any winter that she can. So flying north for the winter, because we're in the southern hemisphere obviously, is a good thing to do. Not that we flew, we drove, but anyway, you get the point. So I'm here on my own still, as far as I can tell. I will just check that I have actually managed to get this live stream on the right place, and as I don't even know where the post that I made last night went. I was just quickly trying to scroll through and find out if it went to one of my other groups, or whether I just managed to make the post and then not post it properly, which is entirely theoretically possible, considering I'm easily distracted and I can get halfway through making a post, or even all the way through making a post, and then just forget to hit the button and close my computer, which I may have done. But anywho, stiff shit, here we are. What's up? It's new moon. It was new moon like 3 hours ago or something ridiculous, so we're in an awesome place for starting new beginnings. You may have been feeling tired or lethargic or dense, or like there's a bit of death energy around you over the last 28, 48, 72 hours, so be an allowance of that if that has been your experience. Make allowance, it's okay, right? I think one of the biggest things for us, you know, I don't even like using the term light worker, but you know, us sensitive, heart-centered beings, is we are incredibly hard on ourselves, and so there's this expectation that we should be high vibrational all the time, that we should be upbeat, that we should be positive all the time. You know, this toxic positivity that's getting more and more commonly talked about, right? And I think some people obviously take that the wrong way and are very quick to jump on, oh, that's just toxic positivity, which is not always the case, right? As most things go these days, the polarity that's brought into any particular subject is off the charts. It's like the whole narcissist type discussion, which has really taken hold in the last 2 or 3 years, has, you know, in my opinion, goes way too far, because we're all narcissist, you know, to some degree, and yes, of course, some people are, usually through their wounding, particularly, you know, narcissistic, and, you know, display what they call narcissistic disorders. But the point is, a lot of people make narcissism very wrong, and the point is, it's a very normal human behavior to be self-absorbed. It is very normal human behavior to be somewhat self-absorbed. and where you draw the line where it becomes a disorder is relatively arbitrary, right? You know, of course, the scientific community or the psychology community has drawn lines, and they do tests and they determine whether someone fits into narcissistic disorder behavior or not. But that's only really, you know, their opinion on the matter. So this same sort of scenario where people make positivity really wrong, right, and start claiming that anything that's positivity is now toxic positivity, you know, have taken it too far. And we see, you know, we can take even more, what's the right word I want to use? I wanted to use the word obscene, but polarities around the racism debate, right, where, you know, generally all humans are racist, irrespective of their skin color, right? Humans biologically find safety in people who look the same color as them. They find comfort. Our human brain is wired to notice differences in things, and no, people are no different. When we notice that someone's different from us, we necessarily inquire into that, and that is, you know, and we can definitely feel, what's the right word? Scared, fearful around those things. Hey, Brother Glenn. So it's quite common, you know, that racist behaviour, e.g. noticing that someone is of a different race, a different genetic makeup, a different origin, and it's no different really to nationalism, you know. The English and the Irish, you know, are opposing each other. The Australians and the New Zealanders do the same, right? We are theoretically, you know, the Pakeha New Zealanders and the white Australians, right, both colonists, still oppose each other to a degree, and still, what's the right word? Discriminate against each other, right? Into, not horrendously, but to a degree, and the same with English and Irish, right? It's essentially the same genetic makeup, but of a different nationality. This is quite common, and it's also seen happening more obviously in race relations. And of course, there is a huge problem, a real problem, I'm not diminishing the problem, around the way that, you know, in general, Anglo-Saxon or Caucasian whites have colonized the world and overpowered various other races and created a discriminatory system that is systemic, and that has to change, and that will change, but it won't change through polarized fight and name calling. And the intensity of the polarity is maintaining a spiral that is not healthy. And so I think I was trying to make bring it back to how people, you know, are very quick to call out toxic positivity these days, and people are very quick to call out racism, particularly when it, and even when it's not really an overt or a damaging form of racism, right? You know, political correctness came through, and it's somehow diminished a little, but, you know, go back 10 years or 8 years or something, when political correctness was right at the height of its heyday. You know, you couldn't say boo about anything without being made very wrong, and of course it went too far. Humans have this nature, or maybe nature has this nature, when the pendulum swings, it goes way past where the beneficial point is, and we go to an extreme of something. We've gone to an extreme of calling out racism, we've gone to an extreme of calling out positivity, we've gone to an extreme of trying to be political correct and not, you know, gender neutrality, another example, right, where it's the levels that we go to try and, under the guise that we're trying to include the minority, is a little bit non-beneficial. And when we look at what's driving this, is it just human nature, or is there really a dark agenda by trying to drive wedges into communities by making it the polarity so strong that either you're right or you're wrong. You have to follow all of these rules to be politically correct. You have to follow all of these rules to be racially correct. You have to follow all of these rules to not be toxically positive, right? You know, as an example that's not really highlighted yet, but it's starting to ramp up. This toxic positivity is being called out more and more. Spiritual bypassing, another term that's being utilized more and more to make people wrong for how they be. And of course, there's definitely stuff there to know around, you know, being overly positive, because there is a downside to that, just as there is a downside to what we might call spiritual bypassing, right? To using spiritual, what's the right word? Notions or understandings to basically to bypass the real world, right? And to avoid problems. People are very quick to want to avoid problems. People are very quick to want to avoid discomfort. And so people will use all sorts of ways of trying to justify their points of view and trying to circumvent the reality of living the messy life that humanity basically invokes. I'm very happy for some questions to come in about anything at all. As I rabbit on, I'm sort of digging myself into a hole here, and I feel yeah, should I start talking about feminism as well, just to dig the hole a little deeper? No, I'm not going to. That was just a joke, right? I was thinking, how can I make this deeper? I could start talking about sexuality and gender specifics, right, as well as racism and the rest of it, and how, well, I already touched on, you know, gender neutrality as a issue here that's gone a little, you know, the pendulum really swings. It'll come back. I think it's great that we have these discussions, but the thing with that you notice when discussion is brought into the community, people will always take radical points of view, and then people will make their radical point of view very right. And then anyone who's not radical enough is made wrong. It seems that society loves this idea of pitching people against one another. We love the idea of competing for the rightness of any particular point of view. And it's really not very healthy for us as a society to keep maintaining this propensity to fight around what we should be, sorry, just get rid of that notification, what we should be aligning with, you know. The keys, yeah, on the top of the fridge. So, oh no, that's the room key. The car key's probably in my bag, Susie, on top of that little shoulder bag. Probably in there. No, the one on the lounge. Go back to the no, lounge. There, that bag. They're about to do their yoga, and Susie wants to get her mat out of the car. That's what's going on there in the background, or in the foreground, whatever we talked about. So yeah, I guess the point that I'm making is to be aware of how division is being intensified at this time, and so much agenda is around driving these wedges in deeper. If we notice the way that the media works and the way that various alternate medias also work, they're very much divisionary, divisive is probably the right word to use there. And that's not really where we're going. That's the old energy of competition and right versus wrong. And so the more that we can relax out of that and to see it for what it is, not to necessarily go into fight against it, but just to opt out of it and not to get so caught up in trying to stay on the right side of right, and to allow ourselves to be much more open to the idea of just being ourselves and allowing that to be beneficial, allowing ourselves to be in a space where we look to achieve the best outcome rather than getting it right, and we don't need to align ourselves. We don't need to be in the winning team. We're allowed to be individual, and we're allowed to have our individual nuance on any particular belief or value or moral. You know, a lot of people get very concerned that what they consider moral, other people might not be following, and thus then is their morals correct, or are the other people, you know, are the other people definitely wrong for not, you know, it can create a lot of stress for people and a lot of competition and conflict. Really, beyond competition, people are very conflicted around the idea that other people aren't doing the same as them. I think in general, what really helps me and what really has helped me a lot in the past is to truly understand that no one thinks the same way that I do. And that's not that I am special and somehow out of the pack, right? Everyone is thinking differently. We certainly have commonality as humans and in our society, and we're definitely educated into various camps that have communal or group thinking around certain ideas. But in general, everyone is applying it slightly different in their mind. Everyone has slightly different ideas about what is and what isn't, what is right and how we're perceiving it, and why things are happening. When you really come to understand that no one is thinking the same way that you are, then you can make allowance for the idea that they're doing behaviours that you don't agree with or can't understand. Like, I get so many people come to me in session and they say, I just can't understand why they're doing it like that. And I said, it's okay, you're not supposed to understand. They think differently to you. They think differently to you, and that's why what they're doing, they think is they're doing the most beneficial thing or the most right thing, or what's at least right for them, even though you think it's abhorrent and, you know, counter everything that you believe in. That's okay. This is the richness of humanity, is that we all have differences. And so our challenge as communities and societies and even in relationship with one other person, our challenge is to make allowances and still seek the unity, still seek the sameness, and still allow that connection that we all have with each and every other one of us, whatever group or unit we're looking at, whatever container we're looking at, whether it's a two-person relationship or whether it's a community situation. We recognize and appreciate the community and the sameness and the unity that's within that, and we also recognize and appreciate the individuality and the differences that we all bring to the table, and we have to be willing to make allowances that people are going to think and act differently to you, and that does not make them wrong, and it does not make you wrong. When we get out of the idea that there's only one right and there is everything else is wrong, multiple wrongs, only one right, you know, it's, you know, the right way to do it is this way and everything else is wrong. When we get out of that thinking, we generally relax a lot more into a beneficial life, right? We can have a life that is far more satisfying, we can be far more purposeful in that life, and we can be far more joyful and happy as we move through that life. We do a better job of experiencing our divinity when we get out of the egoic desire to be right and to stay right and to prove everyone else wrong. Now that might be obvious to you in some ways, but I can guarantee you there'll be subtleties there that you are still to pick up, because I know I'm still picking up areas where I do this very same behaviour of making everyone else wrong for not behaving the way that I do in a particular situation or certain situations, even though I'm making progress and inroads into, you know, the broader sense of the idea, then there's specifics which gets a little more sticky. And so we're all progressing through this process, and it does take time, and that's not wrong. So what else, my friends? I've got another 5-6 minutes here, 8-9 minutes. What else? I do apologise again if you've come on late. I didn't manage to put the notification for this on. Somehow that I had a bit of a technical fail last night. I thought I'd put a notification for this on, and I didn't realise I hadn't until I came on live and went looking for any particular or any specific questions that have been asked ahead of time. Anywho, I can live with that and trust. So, wondering where I loop back to. New moon, here we are, new beginnings. What are you choosing to focus on right now? You know, without being toxically positive, right? Without trying to make it all sugar-coated, what good in your life are you willing to appreciate so that it can appreciate? What direction are you choosing to invest time in so that it bears dividends and yields for you, as opposed to being reactive and focused on problems and trying to, you know, survival mentality, lack mentality? How can you get into abundance right now? This month, in the Mantara Transformation Support Community, been working with the topic of money and financial freedom, and this whole sticky subject that many of us light workers and sensitive heart-based beings have been, you know, disempowered around for a long time, many millennia now, you know, struggling with the concept of money and finance. We've got various programs, we've taken various oaths and vows running, as well as had all sorts of experiences, both firsthand of us being, you know, perhaps harmed for having money, or witnessed what other people did with their money, what other people did for money. Hey, Brother Lewis. And so, you know, this whole money thing has got very, very messy for us, and it is quite disempowering. So, been working with that topic to help free up the ability to have money, and also the idea that, you know, that having money will take you further away from God and all of that sort of time. Awesome, Carolyn. That's an awesome, awesome thing to invest time in, being kind to yourself. Yeah, because you know what? A lot of people beat themselves up about not loving themselves enough. Right. I know a lot of people who get very, very stressed that they don't love themselves enough, and they try really hard to love themselves. I'm not making this about you, Carolyn, by the way. You just pinged a memory that I was having a conversation with someone else around this just a couple of days ago, that they put so much effort into loving themselves and put so much emphasis on needing to love themselves that they'd sort of divorced from love in the process, and they'd made it a very fear-based process of trying to love themselves, right? I know that sounds a bit weird, but when you're doing things because you think you should and you have to in order to be good, right, and proper, in order to have a happy life, I need to love myself more. Oh, how do I do that? So you start fearing that you're not loving yourself enough. That doesn't actually help you get there. And I know, you know, the humor is obvious, but the irony is obvious. But when you get lost in it, it's not so obvious, right? And so many people have tried too hard to have fun, and they make themselves very wrong for not having enough fun. They make themselves very wrong for not being kind enough. You know, I'm not kind enough to myself, e.g. I can progress further on that process, but I don't make myself wrong for being self-critical as much anymore. I don't beat myself up for beating myself up as much anymore. I notice when I'm beating myself up, and compassionately I remind myself that this is a program from the past, that I'm running in not good enough program, not worthy programs based on being persecuted in other lifetimes, right? And so when we remind ourselves of that, we can find some allowance around our self-critical nature, or our very hard nature, the nature that wants to be right? Why are we trying to be right all of the time? Because we're scared of being wrong. Because what happened when we were wrong in other lifetimes is we got persecuted, punished, tortured, all sorts of nasty things happened to us, right, that came after the judgment of being wrong. So that's why that's why the ego would rather be right than happy, because being wrong was meant not surviving. Those times are changing on the planet now. It is becoming easier and easier to be wrong right now, right, to go against the rest of what society believes is right and to still survive. And, you know, the light increase on this planet means that it is becoming easier and easier to be kind to ourselves as well. But we do need to be, in my opinion, just aware that some people, it's very common for us sensitives to be too hard on ourselves in trying to achieve kindness, in trying to achieve self-love, in trying to achieve fun, right? It can be we're very quick to make ourselves wrong, and then to fight against any form of judgment. And the judgment that we're too serious is a judgment. The judgment that but having an awareness that the level of seriousness I bring to the world is not conducive to my best outcome is a valid, right? So understand the difference between a judgment and an awareness. The line can be quite fine sometimes, you know. It's great to have the awareness that we're carrying a certain trait. It's not so good to judge ourselves as wrong for carrying that trait, right? We can be aware that the trait is not beneficial to us, but we don't need to make the trait itself wrong or ourselves wrong for having it. It's just a natural occurrence based on a past that we've already experienced. So with that relaxation into the awareness of, oh wow, I'm still really self-critical, without making yourself wrong for being self-critical, then it makes it actually easier to overcome the self-criticism, as opposed to making self-criticism wrong and then really fighting against it every time you do it. It just creates a contraction which locks the experience in place, locks the behavior in place. So that's the same with everything, right? So when we come back to, if we jump back in the conversation where I was talking about toxic positivity, or talking about racism, or talking about narcissism, when we notice these traits, whether in ourselves or within others, when we take away the wrongness of it, right, and understand that people are behaving in that way, or we ourselves are behaving in that way. We might be behaving in a narcissistic way, we might be behaving in a toxic positive way where we just want to brush over the bad, we don't want to look at it, we want just see the positive, just see the positive. Or we might be behaving in a way where we notice is racially discriminative, right? We see someone and we automatically label them as something based on their skin color or genetic differences that we notice, right? When we notice that behavior, it doesn't help to make ourselves wrong, because we have to understand that we've been programmed into it through our past. With creating the acceptance of the behavior and still maintaining the intention to overcome the behavior, we make the best progress, right? That's the important thing. We accept the behavior while still maintaining an intention to overcome the behavior. See, a lot of people think that if you accept something, then you're stuck with it, but it is absolutely not the truth. When you accept something, you actually gain power to change it. As long as you're not accepting of something, you don't have much power over it at all, right? If you don't accept that you own something, you don't really have the ability to let it go, right? Because you can't let go of what you don't own. So the point is, when you accept that it's a behavior that you have, and you take the wrongness away from it, but also recognize that it's not beneficial, then you have a much better chance of transforming, of overcoming it, of letting it go. And of course, it's not a one-off thing. It's not you just don't say, oh, well, I'm letting that go. Right, I'm letting go of all the racism now. I see it, I'm free. No, these behaviors and these things have been programmed in quite deeply, and you're going to have to maintain a consistency with that intent. You're going to have to notice every time it comes up, or notice as often as you can when it comes up, and then choose to consciously relax through the process of letting it go. It's an ongoing evolution, and making yourself wrong for not just overcoming it in a heartbeat, and making the whole of society wrong for not being able to overcome these racial discriminations that have been woven into the fabric of society over the last few thousand years. You know, it's delusional to think that things can change that quickly. And at the same time, it's going to empower us to truly trust that it will change, and it will change in positive and powerful ways when we engage with the process in a more empowered way, and a less inflammatory way, and a less divisive way, and a less polarized way, and a less right-wrong, us versus them way. Yeah, this is the truth with all divisions, whether it be red versus blue in the political arena, or whether it be man versus woman in dynamics, whether it be, you know, racism, sexualism, nationalism, sportism, whatever ism, spiritualism, you know, religious divisions, all of that stuff. When we start to recognize the issues, the deeper issues that are playing out, and stop being so judgmental and polarized in the process, we're going to make great progress, faster than any of us can really truly believe is the truth, right? It can happen much faster than we imagine, and yet it won't happen overnight. With all transformation, when you relax into allowing it to take as long as it needs to take, it happens much more quickly. When we put time frames and constraints and expectations on, we tend to slow things down. That's the truth. When you don't need money anymore, you tend to find money much more easily. When you don't need a relationship anymore, then relationships come your way. When you give up on trying to get perfect health, then your health improves, right? This is just the nature of how and why Mantra consistently speaks about relaxing, right? Relaxing, basically letting go of the fight. Letting go of the fight, letting go of trying so hard. When you let go of the fight, when you relax, let go of stress, things change. Things change powerfully, and things can change quickly. Okay, friends, that will probably do it for us today. Much love to you all. I will, my intention is to be back next Wednesday. I probably won't be home. Might not be here, but you know, we've got a retreat starting tomorrow. It finishes on Sunday night. We'll be traveling home. I might be home Wednesday morning, but there's a pretty 50-50 chance that I won't be. I might be somewhere else. Anyway, so my intention is to come to you. My intention is also to put on a notification post the night before. Whether or not that happens, I can't control the future. Bye for now, friends. Much love. Namaste.